Hello, Bazo. I. This is a voiceover because, again, when I was playing this, I was sick. And I tried going through this slowly because I read in my head a lot faster than I do out loud. But even going slower, I still read it too fast for how I read verbally. But here are some extra chapters that I got. You gain chapters by playing the different characters. So you can pause it and read these if you want. But we got one for Wilder, we got one for Ironeye here, and that was it. Because those are the two characters I played. And as you can see, the characters are in different spots now, so here's Recluse.
I believe myself skilled in my craft. What is it? We must put the night sky to rights, to see its beauty once more.
And as you can see, the characters that have more than one voice line. They have, I believe, 2 or 3 right now, as of the first patch. Like, I played this all in the first, 3 days of the game coming out. When I ran in a circle, that was a place Ironeye can be. And because we talked to Recluse, I decided to swap to her to try to find Wilder. And here's Ironeye.
Make it quick. You only need to land one good blow to punish a fleet-footed adversary. Be relentless. That's your best bet. Make it quick. A supremely vexing opponent indeed. I've had to face shifting targets before, but never a natural phenomenon.
So that's the 2 that he's got. And here we've got Guardian. I don't think there's anything up here. But there is Guardian right here. Also, first Recluse. She's got like a swooshy dodge, which I like.
I am always
Which is nice.
ready to fight. I've trained with halberds before. No expert by any means, but I can hold my own. No matter how towering the beast we face, stand your ground and raise your shield. Be patient. Your window of opportunity will come.
But yeah, as you can see, just doing normal backstep doesn't have you do the swoosh. You have to be moving while doing it. Which I find a little strange, but... Anyways, moving on. Normally Raider is here. He's not here this time. And Executor doesn't talk. You just get 2 different things. Here, I couldn't get the second thing, but we saw that in part 1, so. And here's Wilder.
When we fight. That beast, was that the Night Lord? When do we... The night could swallow us at any moment. Don't expect me to show the fiends any mercy.
And again, all the NPCs, besides the Great Jar Bazaar, have multiple locations. So, Wilder does have a second location. There's a possible Guardian location. And here, sorceries and incantations. But if you played Elden Ring, you basically know how they work. Also, out here you can actually swap your weapon, so that way you don't have it on your hip or your back when you go back in. Which is a nice little visual thing, in my opinion. But here, they're back.
How are you faring today, champion? Is there anything at all that you require? I'm as dexterous as a seamstress and strong as an ox. My work does, however, take some time. How are you? The enemy our battle will reveal is some manner of beast. When all roads lie sundered and all hope is lost, only sacred power shall reveal the bridge to be crossed. Or so the saying goes. If you were to find this sacred power, the winds of war may very well shift in our favor.
And I decided to just get a bunch of dialogue at the beginning of this part, as you could see, and just do a little bit of exploring. I did a bit of exploring in the first part, but I just wanted to refamiliarize with myself with the area and also find all the NPCs at least once. And I figured Raider was maybe down here because he talked about being in the sea, and here he is, lifting a rock. I would say boulder, but it's not just a boulder, because it's a rock.
I can wait, but I only have so much patience. What if my sword arm rusts? The night is nothing to be afraid of. It is only the setting of the sun. I can wait, but what if the best weapons are the ones that require unvarnished might to swing. Let me at him. The bigger the better.
And they may have more dialogue, but if you want to hear any potential new dialogue, you'll have to get the game yourself. For now, I decided I think that's enough.
What is it?
One
I
more.
will do my utmost to aid you. We have nothing to fear of the night while I am here at the round table. It is one of the few unwavering powers I have been bequeathed.
And with that, we can commence an expedition. And I decided to take a look at some of these because I have quite a lot. And something I suggest is spending a lot of time looking at these, rearranging them, finding any that you don't need or are not going to use, and just sell them. Because if you're not going to use them, then they're just taking up space. Whereas you can sell them to get more merc, and you can use that either to reroll for new relics, you can get new gestures, you can get the prattling pates. And while I didn't know it at the time, because I hadn't beat Gladius, you do earn some certain things after beating Gladius, which is very nice. And I found a neat little trick here where you can just slide off the table, and it looks very smooth. And yeah, this is my favorite dodge in the entire series. And I am going to eventually dive deeper into all these characters. Like, just play a bunch and go through all their journal entries in a single part. Here's the second Wilder location.
When do we that beast?
And I will eventually look at all of them one by one visually and give my thoughts, because they do have very unique looks. And I like all of them except one. But even the one I don't like isn't bad, it's just not my style. And here, bows and bows work basically the same in Elden Ring. But yeah, that's something I'm just going to do in another part. And I will say, also, precision aim looks a little bit different in this game compared to Elden Ring. And the heavy attack shoots 3 at a time, which if you can position things correctly, didn't do it just yet, but you can hit all 3 of these. And right around there, yep. Which is kind of nice. Though, it does less damage than the single shot. It's weird that the heavy attack does less damage than the light attack, but that's just for a single shot. If you get up close and personal, and you hit all 3, then it does a bit more damage. But with that being said, yeah, starting armament inflicts poison. I got this, and I have to say it is one of my favorites. Like, I've recorded... there's this part, and then there's 2 more parts that I recorded after this. And I've just had that as a permanent part of Ironeye, because it's really fun. But matchmaking was taking a bit too long, so I decided to just skip ahead to when we actually got a team. Which was almost instantly, actually, because I canceled the expedition and then I went into it again. But here we have Fiery and Disaster, which is certainly a combination of names. And when I saw that, I audibly went, man, really hoping their names aren't describing this run. And as you can see by the length of this part, it didn't go terribly. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but this was a fun one. I enjoyed it. And so we're just going to drop down. Someone immediately placed a pin. And I had no problem with that whatsoever. Because while I can hold my own, I generally prefer when other people take the lead. At least in games like this. In games where time is a bit of the essence. Here, restoration on attacks, like FP restoration. So I decided to throw that in my other hand. And I decided, since my starting weapon does poison, I can have that. And then the other weapon that we picked up does more damage. So I can use my starting weapon to build up poison until, like, whatever I'm shooting gets afflicted with poison. Then I can swap to the higher damaging bow. And here, just climb up as fast as possible and follow the leader. And something I've noticed, and maybe this isn't super concrete because not during the time of the gameplay, but during the time of this voiceover recording, I played, I believe, either 5 or 6 expeditions. And while I've made pretty good progress, in my own opinion, that's still not a ton of experience. I decided to pick up the stone sword key because I'm not big on consumables, and I thought it might be useful. But in my 5 or 6 expeditions, I've noticed that Executor tends to take charge. Like, if there's an Executor on your team, they tend to be the one who just pins everything, beelines from location to location. And so it's gotten to the point where, like, in my first expedition, I went, Executor looks like they have a high skill floor. And so if I see an Executor, I'm a little worried because I don't know if randoms are going to meet that skill floor. But now I'm kind of excited because I'm like, yes, this person is probably going to take charge and I don't have to lead the team. If I need to, I can lead the team, but that's stressful and I'd rather not do it. But here, they lead us to a flask. Appreciated that. Decided to pick up a gold pickled foul foot for more rune acquisition, and 2 warming stones, because healing items are very good. And then ran forward, just following the team. And there's noise in the background, so I'm going to close my door real quick. Not cutting that out. Here, we jump down. Nightreign has absolutely no fall damage, which is pretty nice. And early on, not really worth it in day 2, but I'd say on day 1, taking out these trash mobs can be kind of nice, because it just gets you some extra pocket change. And I heard of this. They make a sound. Got the Spear Talisman. That's useless to me, but I picked it up anyways, because it might be useful for a teammate. And saw this. Disaster died. And I was looking around when, where is this guy? And I mean, that's the danger of splitting up. And you could say that's on me because he didn't split up from me, I split up from him. Pretty sure. But ah well, people make mistakes when they're new. But here decided to run with Recluse. And at the top, you get a thing here. And HP restoration upon attacks. So I decided to throw that on. And I was hoping that it meant just attacks with anything, not specifically the staff. So that's why I picked it, because HP, very, very important. But in case you're wondering, the reason I went with Recluse, and the fire's getting real close, so it was time to go. But the reason I went with Recluse is because they have limited FP, and because magic builds tend to be a bit less survivable. So I decided to head with them, because I figured if someone was going to die, it's probably going to be them. And here, as you can see, a bunch of worm faces. And thankfully, I was able to keep my distance and not have to deal with the Death Blight. Such are the beauties of being a bow build. And if you've watched me play through the Elden Ring DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, you may have heard once or twice that I tend to defend bows not as a main weapon. They're not gonna replace your sword or your axe or your hammer. But I think a lot of people think bows are bad because they try to look at bows from the perspective of a main weapon and not a support-based utility. Whereas I look at bows from a support-based utility. Picking off additional enemies, just sitting back, chipping away at some things. It's not your main weapon, but having it as an extra tool can be very useful. And that, like, my defense of bows is why I decided to play Ironeye. Because even though with Ironeye, it's not a utility, it's his main weapon, I still wanted to try it out. And that's why I put the poison on the bow, like on Ironeye instead of someone else. Because it adds a bit of utility. And something you'll notice, I don't know if it's in this part, but definitely in future parts, is I am big on reviving. If someone goes down, reviving them tends to be my top priority. And that's partially because having a teammate down means that we do less damage, and I'm more likely to get focused on by enemies and bosses, which I don't want. But also because I'm playing Ironeye more than anyone else. And as I said, bow is very good utility. So having a bow means that I can shoot and revive my teammates from a distance, which is utility that a lot of the other characters don't have. And I can also do things like avoid death blight or poison clouds. And that's something you can kind of see here, where they spray poison, and while melee characters see that as a threat or like a challenge they have to deal with, not me, not the Ironeye. And so that's very nice. But here we got the horn bow, which does more damage, and so I decided to go with that, and then we can level up. And this shoots magic arrows, which is pretty nice. And as you can see, it does more damage than the short bow, so I decided to swap to that, or just like drop the short bow entirely and move on. But another reason why I like reviving as Ironeye is because when people are down, they kind of just sit still. But when you attack with a melee weapon, your character takes a step forward with every swing, which can make it hard to revive teammates because you'll end up walking past them while swinging. And even if you're locked onto them, you'll still whiff some shots. Here, Heart Bow and had a rain of arrows, and had the same damage as the Horn Bow. And so I decided to go with it, because even though it has the same damage, it has a better skill. But yeah, trying to revive with a melee weapon can be difficult because your character is always stepping forwards. Whereas with a bow, you don't do that, which makes it a bit easier to revive. Here, teammates were looking at this. I picked up a stone sword key in the beginning, and I decided, yeah, this is my time to help out the team. So pop that. Godskin Apostle got poisoned. As you can see on the bottom in the middle, there's their name, there's their health bar, and then under their health bar, in kind of the bottom left portion of it, there's a green symbol. That's poison. And once I poison them, I swap over to the heart bow because it does more damage. And here there's the fire. And I decided to just run. Which was a little unfortunate. And yeah, as you can see there, when you're running past a site of grace, you can just spam the interact button. And because you don't need to choose attributes, you just press the interact button. All you need to do is run and spam the interact button. And you'll get your levels. Which is pretty nice. And here, like, it doesn't interfere with anything the team is doing. It doesn't make me any less efficient. Because all we can do is either stand around or kill those trash mobs. And I decided to kill the trash mobs just for some extra pocket change. Like I said, not really worth it in day 2, but in day 1, when you're a lower level. And then, yeah, focus on their perfumers, the depraved perfumers, because they're a bigger threat. And they're dangerous because they can throw fire, which he almost did there. And there, as you can see, poisoned him and then swapped to the stronger bow. But yeah, as Ironeye, I can keep my distance from him, which is nice. Now here, we got the bell-bearing hunter. And while we're fighting him, as you can see, poison. And once I poison him, well, I have the ult, so I'm going to do that. But then I swap over to the stronger bow. And something cool about bows in this game is because they wanted to speed up the gameplay, you don't actually have to two-hand a bow. So you can dual-wield bows, you can have one in each hand, and then you can just press R1, and you'll automatically two-hand your right-hand bow, shoot it, and then put it back in one hand. Which means that if you're using two bows like me, one for a status element or an elemental damage, and one for damage, or like maybe a skill. So if you're using two different bows for two different reasons, and yeah, I decided to swap them because I tend to press R1 for damage, so I put the damaging bow on R1. But yeah, just not having the two-hand bow, very nice quality of life feature that fits with the game, like the philosophy. And here, the first two didn't apply to me at all, so decided to go with that. Which does a little thing when you're walking. And it's important to remember that when you beat a boss, they drop that little purple thing. And you can interact with the little purple thing to get a selection of between 2 and 3 options for making your build a bit stronger, or your character a bit stronger. And when we killed that Everjail boss, we didn't get that because the fire was coming in. But it's still there. It's still around. And here, I decided to take out these enemies because you killed the flame chariots by jumping on top of them and doing a plunging attack. Also to get the extra pocket change for that. But... and then upgraded Ironeye's bow. But yeah, I didn't think that you could do a plunging attack with a bow because why would you? Can't do that in any other game. But you also can't backstab with a bow in any other game. But you can backstab with a bow here. And as I found out in a later run, a later expedition, if you wanna, I suppose is the correct thing to call it, I found out that you actually can do the plunging attack with a bow. I just didn't know that at the time of this gameplay recording. So, yeah, that was just me making a mistake because of a lack of knowledge on my part. But here, as you can see, the Executor's just chain backstabbing the poor Flame Chariot. So, while we didn't do it as quickly as possible, it was still easy. Even if not as fast, still easy. And here, these things run towards you and explode. And so I decided to take them out. So that way, Executor doesn't get exploded while he's trying to chain backstab the boss. And they have their back turned to us, and they take more damage from the back. Like, significantly more damage from the back. Which is why I'm trying to stay behind them. But, even though we didn't do the fast way of plunging attacks, we still got it pretty easily. And I already had 2 bows that were doing their jobs pretty well. Didn't need a 3rd bow, so I decided to go with a melee weapon. And decided to swap those because, like I said, I press R1 to do attacks. And I'm not going to use the Gelmir staff for attacks. And looking back on this now, I probably should have dropped the Gelmir staff for Recluse. But that is a mistake that I made in hindsight. And I think that's very important. And this is the Everdale boss we beat but couldn't grab. And here we could get 20k runes, which I decided to go with. But as I was just saying before, even if saw a cave back there, but I was mostly waiting on Executor to lead the way. But anyways, even if you're someone who isn't going to upload, I do suggest recording just so you can look back on your gameplay. Because being able to look back on your gameplay and be able to pause, rewind, that's the thing I got from the Bellbearing Hunter. And yeah, he wanted to get up there, he just didn't make it the first time. But anyways, like, being able to look back at your gameplay without worrying about, like, actually being in the game and without having the stress of like, I need to keep moving, I need to make decisions now, I need to make progress, I need to be at least somewhat efficient. Without having that stress, just being able to sit back and look at your gameplay at your own pace, just taking it in as an observer rather than an active player, makes it a lot easier to recognize your own mistakes. And that's actually part of why I do this. Because I want to be able to look at my gameplay, see the mistakes that I make, understand that I'm making those mistakes, and then trying to figure out how to not make those mistakes anymore. So, if you're someone who plays these games, especially Nightreign since it's a lot more fast-paced, and because you can't just die, go into a boss alone, die, go into a boss alone, just continuously, to learn. Like, you can't, say like, in Dark Souls 3, you got the Twin Princes, you can just keep heading into the Twin Princes alone, once you get to them. Whereas, you only need to do like a minute of running and waiting. Whereas for Nightreign, if you want to get a second chance at a Night Lord, you need to spend like 40 minutes. Getting through day 1, getting through day 2. And so, you don't have that same level of leisure and time. And so I'd say, especially for this game, it's really good for you to record your own gameplay, just so you can watch it back later, or watch it back after the fact. Just to learn, just to understand your own mistakes, because we're all going to make mistakes, especially early on. But with that being said, we can continue moving forward. And these guys on horseback, they're harder to hit, and so I generally ignore them, but Executor went for him, and because he went for him, I'm not just gonna ditch my teammates. And as I've said before, it's good to take out these trash mobs. Not as much for day 2. Yeah, there, I needed smithing stone 2s, I only have 1s. But I figured we can buy an extra warming stone. But yeah, if you have nothing to do, like if someone else is leading and they're trying to figure out where to go, and you're just standing around not doing anything, and you have a few basic enemies, and you know that you can kill them and keep up with the team without dragging them down, or getting left behind, it's good to do that. And if you're part of an actually coordinated team, you won't find yourself in that position. But if you're playing with randoms, like I am, then that's the position you'll find yourself in. And yeah, sipped my flask and then realized there were a row of raisins right there. And in case you don't know, the quote-unquote crafting items from base Elden Ring, as you can see there, poisoned him and then swapped to the damaging bow. But the items in Elden Ring that are crafting items, like Roa raisins, or Roa fruit rather, in this game, in Nightreign, they aren't crafting items. They give you some kind of bonus. Like, Roa fruit, they give you HP back. There's one, I think they're called Crystal Buds. They give you FP back. Those things there, which are like the golden fireflies from Elden Ring, they give you more runes passively for, I think, a minute. But continuing to head on forward, we got a second Church America here, which gets you an extra heal flask. And like I said, I could kill these guys just for some extra pocket change, and it doesn't make me slow down or less efficient. It doesn't get me left behind. It doesn't drag the team down. So it's a good thing to do. Again, not something you're going to be doing in coordinated teams. But early on, like, I was here because this was, I think, my second expedition, maybe my third. Like, that early on, playing with randoms, it's fine. The Axe Talisman I decided to not pick up because it was useless to me. Ignore the fact that I picked up the Spear Talisman despite it being useless. And here, we have Knights Cavalry. I'm sorry if you hear like a horn blaring in the background. I have no idea what that is. I've never heard that before in my life. But anyways, we have a Knights Cavalry here, so decided to take them out. And I was able to poison them with my poison bow, and then swapped over to the damage bow. And yeah, if you can get the thing that says starting armament starts, or like has poison on it, I would highly recommend getting that. Here, we could have improved ranged weapon attacks or HP restoration upon attacks. It has a worse skill, but I would rather have HP restoration over a better skill, because I don't really use skills that often. Here, this gets us our HP back, our FP back, and if we had enough runes, it would have allowed us to level up. But here, still kind of wanted to know what this was about, because I didn't know how to open those. But the fire said no. So now we just sit back and we wait for the second night boss to show up. And here, basic enemies, you can very easily take them out because they're just not a threat. And that's a page, which they're a bit more dangerous. So decided to focus them. And here, team had it under control, so went for the additional enemy. And with the perfumer taken out, now we get the actual boss. A tree sentinel and 2 knights on horseback. And there, we got them poisoned, and then we can swap over to our more damaging bow. And yeah, these enemies can be annoying, especially if you're on a melee character, because of how much they run around. But if you back up, you can get them to run straight at you, which makes it easier to pepper them with a bow as they're running at you. And yeah, I tend to focus on the additional enemies rather than the main boss, in case you couldn't tell. And I do that because trying to fight a boss with additional enemies means that you have to spread your attention, you have to focus on different things, you have to worry about more things, and that can add stress, that can add difficulty, that can make you more likely to die. Here, poison the tree sentinel. And I know that I mentioned fighting the additional enemies first. But here I was going after the tree sentinel. And that's because I didn't realize that they were still around, the two additional enemies. I mean, I noticed it by now, but at first I didn't realize it because I had knocked them off their horse. And I thought that it meant their death. But after I realized they were still around, I still focused on the boss, so that way my teammates could focus on the additional enemies without having to worry about the boss. So basically, I wasn't really trying to kill the boss, I was just trying to keep the boss's attention, while my teammates cleared out the add-ons. And there, as you can see, you used the poison bow to poison him, which even now, I will, a little spoiler here, I've beaten Gladius. I've beaten the first Night Lord. But even after beating them, the one that adds poison to your starting armament is still, by a decent bit, my favorite relic. Because of just how good it is, especially with Ironeye. Because you can just poison bosses at a distance. And it's so good. It's so good. And here, we take him down. And all three of these are pretty good, actually. I decided to go with this, so when you roll, lightning lands around you. And I decided to go with that because if Gladius tries to attack us, we can just dodge, we can roll, and still get some damage off. But here, we head up, and we make it to day 3. First priority is to level up, and then, yeah, all of those take smithing stone 2s. And I was looking at these. I can only get one because I'm just below 50,000. But I decided to go with that. We can have more defense and some healing. And we can head on over where we will get this cutscene. And I gotta say, this cutscene is still very nice. I haven't fought any of the other Night Lords yet, so I don't know if there's a different cutscene for each one. I would imagine they're all the same. So that isn't too much variety, but this is a very nice cutscene. At least for what this game is, especially this shot. It is beautiful. But with that being said, we make our way in, and we can fight the Night Lord Gladius, Beast of Night. And here, as you can see, Disaster has Poison Mist, the incantation. Or weapon skill, rather. Which I didn't notice at first. I noticed it at some point in day 2, I believe, during the gameplay. But it worked pretty well with my poison added to additional, or to a starting armament, which was very nice. And as you can see, Gladius is already poisoned. And that purple is a grab attack, so you want to avoid that. But yeah, poison isn't crazy strong, but it is just nice chip damage over time. And as you can see, I threw down a Warming Stone to get some health back without costing a heal. And yeah, Fire Breath from in front, Fire Breath from behind. And both my teammates got very low. Disaster ended up going down as well. And I was moving because I wanted to get away from Gladius. And then I started moving towards Disaster, because if you have 2 people who are down, it's good to have the 2 people who are down move together, so that way the one person who's up can hit both at the same time. Or even if they only get one, the one person who gets up is right next to the person who's still down. And here, Disaster was constantly just one single hit away. And it was very unfortunate, but eventually they did get up. And as I said, even if you can only get one person up, the person who got up is right next to the person who's still down, which makes it easier. And here, threw down a Warming Stone to get most of my health back. And I saw that there were 2 right next to each other, so popped my ult. And it was either after this or after the next expedition, I realized that it tended to be better to save your ult, at least in the Gladius fight. Better to all 3 dogs on me. But at least for the Gladius fight, it tended to be better to save Ironeye's ult for reviving a teammate. It's not the strongest ult, but it can take out a single bar instantly, which is pretty nice. And I said that for a reason. But here, like I said, I tend to go for the revives, but Disaster was right next to him. They were right next to each other, and the boss looked at me, and I wasn't right next to him. So I figured, based on that specific situation, it'd be better for me to just keep the attention of the boss. And then here, the boss doing that, it keeps them from attacking for a few seconds as they split into 3. So we both went after the recluse there. And here, both teammates went down. And I decided to try to bring him up because Gladius still has a lot of health left. And very unfortunate timing. I should have rolled instead of shot. And that ended with a defeat. as I said, I made some mistakes, but getting better every expedition. Endurance +2 is nice. That's okay. Not as good as the first one, but it can be useful if you get a thrusting sword. Sacred Blade and Mine +2, it's okay. This next one, the Pocket Watch, that's useful for a side quest, though I didn't know it at the time. But Dexterity +3, that's pretty useful. And the side quest involves you giving it up. And so you have to ask yourself the question, do I want to give up the pocket watch or keep it for its effects? And you can give the pocket watch away at any time. And here, a third journal entry for Ironeye, so you can pause and read that if you want. But yeah, like I said, I didn't even know it was for a side quest at the time. It's either in 2 or 3 parts that I figured out. So you'll be able to see that then. But with that being said, we decided to go and look at the new relics we got. Just, as I said before, you want to constantly add, rearrange, just look at all of the different relics, see what's good, see what's useful, see what fits the characters and your playstyle. And yeah, Ironeye was fun. I enjoyed him. I think he's my favorite, at least to play. But with that being said, yeah.